For centuries, sea waves have been lapping on the shores of these 7 islands, situated on the western coast of India. They were just 7 dots on the map of India. People living on these idyllic islands could never then have imagined that in centuries to come, these islands together would transform themselves into a vibrant city whose skyline would be adorned by skyscrapers. In 1855, Lord Elphinstone formed a museum committee and appointed Dr. Buist as the curator and the secretary. This was the beginning of the museum for the Bombay Presidency. Then in 1858, George Birdwood was appointed as the secretary of the museum committee and the curator of the museum. The Crown took the decision to build a museum of natural history with botanical gardens attached to it. A public meeting was called at the town hall for the new museum under the chairmanship of Mumbai's prominent merchant, Nana Shankar Seth. Later on, Dr. Bhau Daji pursued the donation campaign diligently and collected 1,16,141 rupees from the public. The government contributed another 1 lakh rupees. The foundation stone was laid in 1862. It took 10 years to complete the building. It was then transferred to the Bombay Municipal Corporation in 1873. George Birdwood was appointed as the first curator of the museum. Cecil Burns, who was the principal of Sir J.J. School of Arts, took charge of the museum in 1903. He thought of making the museum more appealing to the people. He had 3-dimensional models and dioramas made that documented life in Bombay, the development of the city, and the traditions of its inhabitants.
Bhau Daji Museum, it was designed as a museum for the city of Mumbai. We have the Prince of Wales Museum, which is not specific to the city. It's in many ways, it extends itself to represent the whole country. Because if you wish to really know the heritage of the city of Mumbai, then you must go and visit Bhau Daji Museum.
When we found this fantastic building and fantastic collection in a very bad condition, when I saw the institution in this way, and we went through INTAC, which I am vice chairman of, we went to the municipal corporation and requested them that we would like to restore this wonderful museum. We'd like to bring it back to its glory, to its old glory. Today, restoration and conservation have come in the forefront, but 15 years ago, very few people knew what it was all about. So it was very difficult to tell people that we will bring it back to its old glory. It is going to cost so much money. It's a capital intensive job. And the corporation also didn't quite understand what it would become. So they knew it was in a very bad condition. So they said to us, to INTAC, you are the expert organization, you please help us. Now once they gave us the permission to do the restoration, then it was a question of getting the money. They said, we don't have the money, but if you can raise the money, you ask any of your corporate supporters, would they be willing to give money? At that time, no corporate had given money for restoration. We were able to convince Mr. Rahul Bajaj and Mr. Neeraj Bajaj. They walked in and they saw the whole museum. They took one round of it, and I explained to them that this is a great institution. It's a museum about the history of the city. They took an instant decision. Yes, we will give you the money.
After this tripartite arrangement, and when they saw the money coming from us, the Jamna Bajaj Foundation, and more than that, quite frankly, when they saw the work being done by Tasneem, the funds from them also started coming much more liberally.
After almost 130 years of its existence, the museum, the building, as well as the objects within, required large-scale restoration. The iron pillars had separated from the walls. Many glass panes were broken. Electrical cables were conspicuous all over the place. Major repairs were required, and they were done meticulously.
After all this very hard work, we won UNESCO's highest award for cultural conservation, the 2005 Asia Pacific Heritage Conservation Award of Excellence. When that happened, the corporation was absolutely thrilled. The commissioner, the mayor were absolutely delighted. And then they also said, we will contribute to the project. And that changed the nature of the project.
Previously, I don't think, barring a very, very few people, anybody even from Mumbai, leave alone the tourists who used to come to Mumbai, ever even heard of Bhau Daji Art Museum. And we need to still propagate it much more. It's not that we don't need to do that, because that's not easy. But it's already, because of what it has become, once a person sees it, he goes back and talks to 10 people about it. And that encourages others कि अरे बम्बई जाएंगे तो फिर भाव दाजी आर्ट म्यूजियम में तो जाना ही.
Now you enter this amazing museum and you can see it's one of the most beautiful buildings in India today. It's Victorian, high Victorian architecture in the interior, and on both sides of the museum you have different themes. The first theme is the theme of pottery and figurative art, and on the left side is the focus on design and the beautiful craftsmanship of the Indian craftsmen. So starting with pottery, this is Ajanta pottery, which is exquisite, which was especially made at the JJ School of Art. And these are different styles. They were all experimental. They were all contemporary at that time. And then you see from pottery we go into figurative art. And the figurative art is demonstrated here with this beautiful ivory pieces, also made by, many of them made by the students of the School of Art. And they're quite extraordinary because they include both a European aesthetic and an Indian aesthetic. And then we have amazing silver collection, we have a beautiful bronze collection, and of course we have Prince Albert, who was the consort of Queen Victoria. This is David Sassoon, who was one of the great benefactors of Mumbai. He was an Iraqi Jew who made his money in the shipbuilding and opium trade of India, and he gave the money for this statue.
In the 19th century, it was fashionable among the wealthy people to use foot warmers made of copper and zinc bidri alloy to rest their feet. India used to trade textiles for the silverware from Africa and Europe. In India, Kutch silverware was famous for its graceful designs. Intricate carvings of deities were popular themes in sandalwood carvings. The statue of Parvati holding Ganesh is one such example. The museum also has a community hall where audio-visual programs are shown. It also has a unique audio guide.
The museum introduced a new state-of-the-art audio guide system a few months ago. We're standing in the museum's Industrial Arts Gallery in front of the lacquer display. This display showcases lacquerware that dates back to the late 19th and early 20th centuries. You might have noticed the audio guide symbol on the showcase. When you stand in front of the symbol and put on the headset, automatically you will begin to hear about the process of production, stories of the craftsmen and the art tradition. In addition to guided tours, interpretive text panels and labels, the audio guide allows visitors to engage in more detail with the museum's stories, its collections, its architecture and its history. The audio guide is available in English, Hindi and Marathi for the nominal price of ₹30. You are also given a beautifully designed map of the museum which showcases each of the display cases that are connected to the audio guide system. This map can be taken away as a memento of your visit as well.
Every case was restored. There's all new lighting, LED, state-of-the-art lighting, the glass, the fabric, to give it a very contemporary look. But we kept the 19th century quality and feel of the place intact, which is what historic restoration is all about. And this showcase in particular highlights some of the most beautiful objects we have in the museum. You see this amazing horn candelabra. It's European in design, but what they've done is they've added Indian elements to it. Another beautiful horn object is the peacock. Again, it's a typically Indian animal. Form, as you can see, is a very contemporary kind of form. I'd like to also show you this beautiful Koftagiri work. Koftagiri was a very special art that came from Damascus and traveled through Afghanistan to India. And you see that it's exquisite. It's silver inlay in metal. And the metal was softened, and then the silver was beaten into the metal. And it's extraordinary craftsmanship. And we have some very beautiful objects made in Koftagiri in the museum. And we not only sent beautiful objects abroad, but we also brought beautiful objects from abroad to showcase to our craftsmen. So what you see here is objects from Japan, beautiful ivory made in Japan, silver, copper, murtis, a dragon, all of this made in Tibet and Nepal. And you see beautiful ivory made in China. These are some of the beautiful objects that were brought back from China. We had a strong opium trade with China, and the vessels, the ships that would go there, would bring some of these objects back and then sell them or give them to the museum. These are food dogs, for example, and they are guardian animals that you find outside many Chinese buildings. These sort of objects had not been seen in India before, so they were rare at the time that they were displayed in the museum. And the objects from Sri Lanka are particularly interesting because they are made of coconut. As you know, Buddhism is the religion in Burma, and this beautiful Buddha comes from Burma.
Most of the museum's objects were in a state of gross neglect. They had fungus and were damaged by poor handling. INTAC, the Indian National Trust for Art and Cultural Heritage. The INTAC team of conservators came from Delhi to execute the work. Each object was assessed for damage. It was photographed before, during and after the restoration process. Then it was measured and weighed, and a report was prepared. The INTAC team restored about 4,000 objects. Restoration of the priceless collection of rare books in the museum library is in process. Painstaking efforts are required to restore an object, but the results are astonishing.
This is one of the most beautiful objects we have in the museum. It was restored like everything else that you see around.
I remember that days of 2002, 2003, when this building was an impressive building but was quite run down. It was not something as what we see now. This is one of the finest interiors which you see in any public buildings in Mumbai, and it's been restored to that past glory. A lot of details, a lot of important things have been highlighted. A lot of research has gone. So it was the first building which was built. It has a Palladian architecture from outside, but the interior is very high Victorian. And when I mention very high Victorian, it means the opulence which is seen in the color scheme, in the gold gilding, in the ornamentation. That is what makes this building unique. You can see in the cast iron columns, which were highly gilded and balanced with the blue color and the red color, which is what the Victorians liked. And this is what was given to Mumbai as one of the very early examples of opulence. If you see the ceiling, it's a very interesting pattern which has with the Star of David. It's a six-sided star, which actually in a very subtle way symbolizes the various people who contributed to this project, out of which one was David Sassoon, and you can see his bust down below. And that is very subtly manifested in the ceiling to show the contributions of the philanthropists for the construction of the building. It's an early example of public-private partnership.
The miniatures displayed in the museum are from Mughal, Rajput and Pahari schools of miniature painting. There are paintings of the 6 principal male ragas and of their 36 raginis.
As an artist, visiting this museum is an absolute delight. Space which is more than 100 years old, which has been restored to its original glory, is so amazing that It's absolutely a world-class museum today.
George Birdwood, the first curator of this museum, was fascinated by the variety of Indian musical instruments. He remarked that for over 2000 years, the design of Indian musical instruments have remained the same, retaining its rich tradition. The grand palisades and the cast iron railings of the central staircase with an iconic VA embedded in them is the major feature of the building. While restoring them, they were painted magenta red with a touch of gilding. The staircase leads us to the Founders Gallery.
Dr. Bhau Daji was the leading eminent figure of the period who contributed to the museum, and that's why the museum in 1975 was renamed after him. So to the left of Dr. Bhau Daji is Jagannath Shankar Sheth, who was chairman of the fundraising committee for the museum. What's very interesting is just like we are raising funds today in the 21st century for the museum, in the 19th century, the citizens of Mumbai raised the funds to make this museum possible. And Jamshedji Jijiboy, who founded the JJ School of Art, also donated to this museum. And there was a strong relationship between the museum and the School of Art. The curator of the museum was also the principal of the School of Art. We are now going towards the Kamal Nayan Bajaj Mumbai Gallery, and on both sides, on the walls, are some of the most beautiful artifacts in the museum. The jail carpets. The large one in particular is very special. It was made in the Yerwada Pune jail, and it had a huge hole in it the size of a man. We had to get 6 craftsmen from Kashmir who worked on it for 6 months before you see it in the condition that it is today, where you cannot tell that it had been so badly damaged.
The Kamal Nayan Bajaj Mumbai Gallery, situated on the first floor, tells us the story of Mumbai city. It tells us about the metamorphosis of 7 islands, joined together by reclamation, which grew to become a great metropolis.
This case shows us all the different boats that you would have seen in Mumbai harbour at the turn of the century. Some of them are long-distance boats and would have been trading vessels which were used for trade with the Arab world, and some were used for trade along the coast. And that is a special, very special case which we commissioned especially for the museum because it's the Mumbai City Museum. These models represent the different communities that came to Mumbai and made her so successful. They showcase the dress as well as the headwear. The Kamal Nayan Bajaj Mumbai Gallery showcases the lifestyle and culture of the people of Mumbai in the 19th century.
Describing the lifestyle of Mumbaikars in those days, the games they played, the prevalent religious life. Games were considered to be the healthy form of entertainment. We can see here games like Atak Matak, Kanholia, Songtia or marbles, and the Shavtari Ganjifa. They are either physically or mentally challenging. There were many occupations and trades which were being practiced by the people. Although quite a few of those occupations do not exist anymore in Mumbai, a few are still practiced in rural areas even today. We can see here a potter making earthenware, rice parcher, gram parcher, glass blower, women churning buttermilk to extract butter, and many more. Here we see a professional soldier fully covered with protective armour. The clay models of various British Indian Army regiments shows the vast expanse of different major communities existing in India at that time. The regiments were organized by community, and each one was allowed to retain their traditional attire. In the late 19th century, there was a severe plague epidemic in Mumbai. The then British government decided to educate the population about healthy living environments by showing well-planned villages. The diorama captures the essence of the government's message. Well laid out roads, houses with plinth, tiled roofs, etc. The diorama shows better farming practices and improved agricultural implements, channeled water system for irrigation, and many other new farming concepts. It also shows the complete process of jaggery production, right from sugarcane planting to crop cutting to extracting the sugarcane juice. It is then boiled, concentrated, and then poured into molds. Then it is sold in the market. The models of two temples, namely Meenakshi Temple of Madurai and Kashi Vishwanath Temple of Banaras, are both dedicated to Lord Shiva. These models attract foreign tourists.
I must confess that even we did not expect such a magnificent job to have taken place. So such a beautiful job, and which of course huge credit must go to Tasneem Mehta and the entire team of trustees who have really given their sweat and toil and blood to this whole to the museum.
This is the Kamal Nain Bajaj Special Exhibitions Gallery. This is where we host our international exhibitions, our special exhibitions, national and local exhibitions. We encourage contemporary artists as well, and we invite them to have a conversation with the museum collection, and those shows are presented here.
A special gallery where various national and international exhibitions are held often.
Every time I'm in Bombay, I come to visit this museum. At first I was amazed by the restoration work that had been done here and how it's kept up year after year, even during the monsoon season. And then the museum started to do something interesting. It started to turn toward contemporary art in this back room on the second floor. It opened up another building in the back. It opened up a park area that had artisans working in it with ropes and doing interesting installations. Every time I have friends here, we all come here because it's our favorite destination in Bombay.
The museum has introduced a new postgraduate diploma in modern and contemporary Indian art and curatorial studies. It aims to enable students to understand Indian arts in the context of its history. The museum also has a good reference library.
I'm a student at the Art History and Curatorial course here. We have classes every weekend, which are absolutely fabulous.
जे स्कूल ऑफ आर्ट के डीन होने के नाते मैं सब जो स्टूडेंट्स हैं या जो रिसर्च है उनको अपील करना चाहता हूँ कि जो म्यूज़ियम है उन्होंने बहुत अच्छा सेटअप उनके पास है, बहुत अच्छा कलेक्शन उनके पास है और एक सिटी के अंदर है। तो हम लोग बच्चे जो स्टूडेंट्स हैं उन्होंने जाके वो देखना चाहिए, वहाँ पे जो वर्क है उसके साथ उनके थोड़ा स्टडी करना चाहिए, वहाँ के जो एक्सपर्ट्स हैं उनके साथ डिस्कस करके वो ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा इन्फॉर्मेशन ले सकते हैं ताकि उनके आगे का जो रिसर्च है उसके लिए ज़्यादा हेल्पफुल हो सकता है।
The museum also offers schools and NGO groups to participate in various workshops. Some of the popular workshops include silver work, pottery, ragmala paintings, and puppet making. These workshops are conducted in English, Hindi, and Marathi. The museum's education and outreach program has expanded significantly in the last few years. It is focused on providing stimulating, participatory experiences that respond to different ages, interests, and language groups. Conservation, preservation, education. This is not only a museum, but an education.
I think the fact that the Bhau Daji Museum sort of transcends those traditional roles of conservation, preservation, and education, which are the key roles of a museum, and it sort of takes on the contemporary where, you know, beyond looking at the past to really shape the present through dialogue, through cultural exchange is where the museum's is sort of setting a precedent in the city. And the project with Xenia was really a public project, which is extremely rare in the city, an opportunity to be able to engage with a large audience. The original role of the museum was that the collection was really a set of experts would really guide you through the collection, but here It's a far more democratic space where people come in and the community themselves share their own stories, and they're also moving forward in trying to find new ways, new vocabularies, new tools of engaging the wider public.
The Bhau Daji Art Museum is not only a museum, it's an educational institution. And Tasneem Mehta always says that in our interactions with other museums, whether in Florence or London and others, by students of schools and colleges visiting the museum, you are teaching them. And then we will have museums sending us exhibitions. We had this recent one from Florence. It's a great educational experience.
In 2005, the museum entered into a formal partnership with the Victoria and Albert Museum of London and other museums to enable the exchange of cultural expertise through exhibitions, workshops and lectures. It has hosted Florentine Renaissance in collaboration with Guild of Dome Association in Florence and Museum of the Opera del Duomo, The Gates of Paradise, Ghiberti's masterful sculptural renderings at close quarters.
What I like that is happening there is that it's become a living, breathing space. And as a living, breathing space for all kinds of cultural activities, it's now a place where you can find many things happening.
The East Gardens of the museum, nicknamed the Graveyard, as it accommodates the statues of English governors for safekeeping, a reminder of Mumbai's colonial past. It also has a tall gas lamp with 4 fountains, which used to illuminate the Metro Cinema cross-section earlier. The island of Elephanta derives its name from this stone elephant, which was at the entrance of the rock-cut caves. The elephant broke into several pieces when the English tried to ship it to England. The pieces were brought to the museum and were reassembled and are displayed at the entrance of the museum. The number of people visiting this iconic museum in Mumbai is on the rise, as is evident from the visitors' book.
We are a nation that has amazing museums, and yet of course we have a dialogue with the V&A, but we should also be having a dialogue with the National Museum, which has now happened, and with other such museums, so that we're bringing collections from there, from the Salar Jung, for example, where I was again on the board of the Salar. So to bring these collections to Mumbai, to be able to share with the audiences in Mumbai. The new building will be an iconic project for Mumbai. Our vision is to create an institution that can be as good as any of the museums that you visit internationally. We have invited architects from across the globe to participate in a design competition. An important part of what we will create in the new building is a learning center and a research center. This is aimed at both children and at adults and scholars who would like to study the development of Mumbai and Maharashtra, and by extension Indian culture, and enrich the knowledge that we already have. We expect the new building to be ready by 2018, and I very much hope that all of you will visit us and enjoy and learn from what we have to offer you.
The search for the hidden treasure is not over as yet. It will continue, and more treasure could be discovered in years to come.